Good morning, everybody. As people continue to join us this morning, welcome to the session. We'll get going in about 60 seconds time. Just give more people a chance to join into the session. All right, I'm going to get started. Welcome everybody to this the number 8 in a series of digital insights. I'd like to welcome you all to this call. If you're listening to the recording, then I guess good morning, good afternoon, and good evening is in order. But welcome to the session. I am very excited to have our panelists, who I'll be introducing to you very shortly. But just to get things started, this series is has been ongoing probably just over a year now. We're into the 8th of the series. Today we're going to be talking about the adoption of digital technologies and the trends that we're seeing, and just reflecting on 2021 and which companies out there are really making a difference and are benefiting from not only digital technologies but emerging technologies. I'm going to do a brief introduction of Bapesa, just a minute or two. I'm then going to briefly introduce you to the panel members, and then we'll break out and I'll officially introduce each one of the panel members and we can start the discussion. And I'm expecting that to be in about 10 minutes time. So let's get going. So Bapesa, for those of you that don't know, provides our members and stakeholders the insights and the support for them to succeed in this fast and rapidly growing market, both in South Africa and abroad. Bapesa is a not-for-profit company that serves as the industry body and trade association for global business services into South Africa. And we serve both the international and the domestic markets. So for those of you that don't know, global business services are any service that can be delivered from within the borders of South Africa on behalf of organizations sitting anywhere in the world. So typical examples would be an outsourced contact center, or a back office BPO, or a shared service operation. And this is a rapidly growing opportunity and industry. Over the last 3 to 4 years, South Africa has shown a remarkable 20% annual year-on-year growth in this area. It's probably one of the few industries, I think one of two that I'm aware of, industries in South Africa that showed a massive growth even through the COVID period. So huge opportunity in this space, and therefore huge opportunity for technology. Both the use of technologies and those organizations that serve the industry with technologies and integrations and services. So a very exciting space to be in. And this webinar basically is used to be a monthly. We've moved it out to every 6 weeks. And it's in these webinars that we challenge our thinking in terms of, where to next, how do we grow. There are statements that are being made by various proponents and leaders in the market that the only way that South Africa can really claw its way out of its current situation is by way of advanced digital technologies and entering into the global market and expanding its reach that way. So moving on to the next slide, we have a question that we've been asking for the last just over a year, and we continue to explore this question, basically asking, can South Africa attain the status of a leader in the delivery of IT outsourcing and digital services? So, I'll just ask the panel members to keep this in the back of your mind, and maybe as we get to the end of it, I'm sure we're not going to answer this question in full. We will continue to explore this question over the coming months. But the idea that South Africa can differentiate itself needs to be top of mind and be thought about by leaders within this country. And so let's move on quickly then and get into the panel. So today we are joined on the panel by, I'll start in the middle with Carl Reed, who's the Chief Solutions Officer and an executive at Pivotal Data. We also have Dr. Jacques Ludick, who's the CEO of Cortex Logic and the Cortex Group. And then last but not least, Adam Spence, who's the CX Practice Manager at NTT in Australia. And so I'm going to just now stop sharing, and then we'll get directly into the panel discussion. Okay, so hopefully now we should all be visible to everybody on the call. And so, welcome panel members. I'm going to ask the panel just to do a short introduction of some ideas and views that they have given the subject matter today. So maybe just five minutes or so, maybe 7 minutes at an extent. But the first person that I'm going to introduce to you is Dr. Jacques Ludick. Now, Dr. Ludick is a smart technology entrepreneur and AI expert, founder of multiple AI companies, the author of AI Ecosystem Builder, and an award-winning AI leader with a PhD in artificial intelligence and 25 years experience in AI and data science and its applications. He's currently the founder and CEO of the Cortex Group and Cortex Logic, focusing on providing scalable, ultra-personalized AI-enabled wellness solutions. Now, I can tell you that Dr. Ludick has got a profile as long as my arm, so I don't want to go into all the details. I'm sure he'll address what's needed, but just to say that he's recognized worldwide. His previous company was acquired by General Electric in the early 2000s. He spent some time at General Electric as their head of AI, came back to South Africa, started Cortex Logic, and is certainly proponent of AI in this country. In 2019, he was the recipient of Africa's AI Leader of the Year award, and I can go on and on and on. But Jacques, I just want to welcome you to this panel and then give you the opportunity to just spend some time with us giving your thoughts on this subject today. Thank you, Jacques. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Neville. Appreciate. I assume everybody can hear me clearly. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, no, thanks. Honor. It's to be here and to just speak about AI. I've been very fortunate my whole career effectively in AI. Also at Stellenbosch University when I did my PhD in AI machine learning, probably one of the first in that space. And I didn't know it's going to end up being such an exponential technology in a smart technology era. So, and it's wonderful to see how technology can be used in a very impactful way. And I think what happened over the last 2 decades, and obviously we're going to talk about customer experience and those kind of things, and I will lead into that as well. I think what was quite interesting is what's happening here is at exponential rate, we are instrumenting the world. Currently, obviously with people, we've got cell phones, we've got people with smartwatches and all sorts of different ways of capturing more data. And then obviously with IoT or the Internet of Things, they talk about the intelligence of things. I wrote about that in the book as well. I think there's more opportunities to unlock value and to create much better customer experience, more personalized customer experience. And I think that will disrupt this world in ways that's unbelievable. That will be so far away from the current ways of doing things, or at least the previous decades. I've been, Neville, you mentioned General Electric, with Season Systems, my first AI company that I sold to General Electric in 2011. In that space, we also work with consumers and data, etc., and data mining and so forth. But the predominant industries that we've tackled was more manufacturing and industrial space. And that's why GE also acquired us. The reason I mentioned that is, in that world, we always had sensors, we always had the industrial world instrumented. There was always, if you look at any plant, minerals, metals, mining plant or manufacturing plant, you're always measuring temperatures, flows. You've got all these kind of systems that control, advanced process control systems that control processes and pieces of equipment. So it's a wonderful opportunity to actually deliver impactful solutions where you increase the throughput, the yield, the quality of the products and processes. In the consumer-facing world, I think we've got unbelievable opportunity now with the internet and mobile ways of communicating, but also just with phones and the fact that AI can now actually, if you think about natural language processing and vision and all these kind of applications, that makes it easier for humans to communicate even more naturally with piece of equipment, and not necessarily with phones. In the future, it would be with your cars, with your houses. The more you instrument the world, the environment, there's going to be more opportunities to create a better customer experience. And I think the challenge for many companies, some of the big in the financial services sector or retail companies, is how do they change the way of interaction with customers? And we've seen many examples with, say, Netflix and Airbnb and Amazon and all these companies, and just the way Google and Facebook is utilizing data, not only for advertising purposes, but specifically if you think about recommendation engines and the ability to do cross-selling, upselling, all of those kind of things. So it is really incredible, powerful tool now to change the game. And because you will also see AI now on multiple levels. It's not just the fact that you can create recommendation engines and so forth. Clearly on the user interface, we can communicate more naturally with humans. So there's already AI there, as I've mentioned, natural language processing and video and sentiment analysis and all sorts of stuff. But then all of this, every interaction with the intelligent virtual assistant or with an app, all of that is data that we can capture. So on the back end, you can do proper 360-degree data mining, where you can now look at integrating all the different types of data that's coming through to be more relevant in your communications. So if you think about call centers or just any way of interacting now, I think it changes the game completely. And what I'm doing right now, we've actually, with Cortex, we've developed AI enterprise solutions similar to C-Sense, but we've transitioned now to AI-driven platform plays, where we've got better control of the data, and we're applying AI at all those levels, almost like all three levels. On the user interface, with intelligent virtual assistants in the way you interact, with recommendation engines around content and selling, and then also data mining on the back end, where you can actually now determine, you build this 360-degree kind of profile of an individual, but you can now utilize that information as back-end intelligence to be more relevant in communications. And that's what we're now doing with our health wellness and mental wellness platform plays, like Journey Wellness, like, for instance, Vive Teens. Vive Teens is in partnership with Naspers Media 24. It is a personalized wellness companion for teenagers. So very focused, But we're doing all of those kind of things that I just talked about. That's also relevant for all other industries, where you actually, natural language, we've got natural interaction, personalized interaction with people, recommendation engines, and then data mining on the back end so that you can be more relevant and topical in your conversations and interaction. What we also do, because I think the human element is very important. So we combine AI-driven intelligent virtual assistant with also human-led support services. And you can almost feed the intelligence also to the human-led support services so that they can actually improve that interaction as well. So it's kind of a hybrid type of model, but it's bringing the things from the best of both worlds, bringing it together. So that's the opportunity, and I would love to talk more about that.
Oh, great. Thank you, Jacques. Wow, what an introduction. You took us a spin around the world of AI. Thank you. We'll get back to you in a second, and we can get into some of the questions. But next up, I wanted to introduce you to Adam Spence. Adam spent the first 14 years of his career with Vodafone Australia, where he drove the implementation of many leading network infrastructure and call center initiatives, which include Genesis Virtual Call Center, voice recording, outbound dialers, and then created the world-acclaimed and award-winning Lara speech application for Vodafone Australia. That I can remember clearly, that was groundbreaking work back in the early 2000s. And then Adam joined Vodafone's Global Customer Management Group, where he assisted other Vodafone markets with the implementation of speech recognition solutions. And then Adam was also the driver of initial trials and the implementation of Vodafone's handset self-care strategy. He then moved to Nuance, spent some time there building out Asia Pacific's business for Nuance. In 2014, he moved back to Vodafone into Qatar, where he headed up the customer care and experience and digital transformation within that business. And then most recently, Adam returned to Australia, where he headed up 24/7.ai in the region, as well as fulfilling senior leadership roles in Verint and NTT Australia, whilst completing his master's in digital marketing from Salford University in the UK. So with that, Adam, welcome as a panelist to this webinar. I'm going to hand over to you, and then you can take some time and give us some of your thoughts. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Neville. You can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. First of all, I want to complain that I'm going after Jacques, but anyway. So, maybe I'll take a little bit of a different tact, and I've sort of tried to categorize technology adoption trends in three different categories. So first of all, I think in 2021, we've seen old technologies that have probably been around for many years actually living up to expectations. And I think some of those is SaaS, and contact center as a service. I think you've seen through probably, the COVID era, we've seen, and I've been part of a number of deployments that have happened in the space of days and weeks, not years. And that's really been driven by necessity, and there's been, a number of occasions where contact centers have had to get created in a very rapid, time frame to be able to service community and COVID needs. So I think a lot of these drivers have always been on the agenda for a lot of organizations, but they've sort of moved from actually being on the agenda to actually happening. I think probably the other, it's not really a technology trend, but maybe it's an ecosystem challenge. You've also seen this at the time of, you're reading about this Great Resignation. So you're seeing a lot of organizations losing staff at a great rate and people moving from company to company. So one of the challenges is, how do you deliver all of these things whilst you've got a pretty fluid workforce in the organization? And then The second category that I sort of put everything under is, convergence, and it's convergence of digital and physical. So, and that sort of comes in I've got a couple of use cases. So during COVID, a number of the banks I've seen have deployed, the ability to authorize transactions in a branch by integrating the branch experience with the digital experience. So the ability for someone who wants to complete a transaction, rather than picking up a pen, they'll get sent a message and say, hey, can you please place your finger on your iPhone and your biometric authentication, and we can complete that transaction. And then, coupled with that, you've seen a convergence of workforce between frontline contact center staff and retail, where people have been like, oh, wow, I've had to close this branch because of COVID, because I'm a close contact and I've taken out the rest of the 19 people in my workforce because I have COVID. So you've had organizations actually redeploy those people into things like async messaging and chat as channels, which has meant that, back to the first point, it's always been on the agenda for organizations to get a large percentage of their contacts to digital. And now you've got, banks and telcos ranging anywhere from 25% to 60% of their contact via digital channels. And then, a little bit to what Jacques was talking about, you're now actually seeing, AI live up to its expectations, and a number of, for many years there was hey, it may do this, it could do this, and now it's actually doing these things. So, and that can really range from, organizations not having to go and do an outbound survey to their customers. They can actually use machine learning and data to actually predict, based on the language that a customer's used in a transaction, whether it be via chat or via voice, or even by the behaviors that they're taking when they call the call center or they visit retail, or the behaviors in spend, to actually go and say, hey, I should be worried. I think Neville's going to leave if we don't do something, or I can tell that Neville's had a really bad experience with me, to the ability to map and automatically route the right contacts to the right call center agent. There's a number of businesses that are doing some very smart things in terms of, I'm going to get Neville's call or Neville's chat to Adam because we both have a common interest around cricket or rugby or, whatever it might be. And I'll alert that to the agent. And then you're seeing that AI and augmented experience continue, not just from, there's been years where there's been chatbots or voice bots, but you're seeing that as an augmented experience where it actually assists and supports the agent. So that's sort of probably another trend that I've seen in 2021. You've seen that, hey, it's not all about how do I serve the customer, but how do I also serve and assist the agent, because they're actually my greatest asset. So I think they're sort of the three categories that I've sort of seen in 2021. So.
Awesome.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. We'll get into some of those areas very soon. So next up, it gives me pleasure to introduce you to Carl Reed, an ICT expert. He's been in the industry for more than 32 years and currently applies his vast knowledge and experience in his role as Chief Solutions Officer at Pivotal Data, where he delivers a range of basic to highly complex cloud and premise-based contact center process automation workflow and enterprise unified communication solutions. Carl combines his strong technical background in multiple fields, including engineering, development, process and product management, complex solution design and architecting and deployment, with his proficiency in business development, pre-sales, sales, and support to deliver a return on investment for clients. He fulfills an active executive role to connect resources and competencies across Pivotal Data's entire sales, solution development, project deployment, and support value chain. Welcome, Carl. Keen and excited to hear your view of of the technologies that have been adopted and what's working out there. Over to you, Carl.
Thanks, Neville. You can hear me? Cool. Yeah. Firstly, I'd just like to thank, obviously, Adam and Jacques. And exactly what they were actually speaking to resonates across the board. It's not just something that is just, in most parts, a lot of people would hear these subjects and these topics as also almost like vaporware. You know, it's sort of something it's coming in the future. But I think what's happened over the last 2 years, and no one really wants to talk about hearing about COVID, but COVID sort of pushed us in every level to sort of start looking and adopting technologies that we possibly wouldn't have adopted for probably another 5 or 6 years, maybe even longer. And we are definitely seeing that massive change in organizations. And it's not just in contact centers, it's across businesses. Many, many businesses are trying to understand, how do they improve their customer service? Service levels we are noticing has definitely increased. A lot of what I'm talking to is my personal experience with customers and what we sort of engaging with customers about. Service levels are becoming sort of so important to customers. They don't just talk about it anymore. They actually want to do something about it. So in the past, it was just, we want to increase our service levels. We actually want to do better. We want to treat our customers better. Whereas actually it's become paramount. They have to know what their customers are about. They have to know if their customers, Adam touched on it, is their customers going to leave us? Are they ready to leave? Can we catch them before they leave? So service levels, understanding our customers and that sort of thing is becoming paramount. Agent wellness. A lot of people really didn't actually understand the wellness of agents. And when I talk about agents, I'm talking about all the users, all the people that are interacting on behalf of your organization with your customers. The agent wellness is vital, absolutely vital. And we have in the years past forgot about them. We really have. And what we've noticed is the wellness in an organization, the wellness to ensure that the people, the guys in the front line, I mean, they are your foot soldiers in your company. Are they okay? Are they equipped? And wellness is spread across the board. It's not just in their working life, and what they're doing for you, it's how are they in their personal life? How does this, because everything touches, everything connects. And we're noticing more and more that agents and the users basically need assistance, they need help. And where does that help come from? Yes, it can come from people, it can come from that, but it also comes from systems. It comes from them being able to do their job better. They feel more accomplished because they are doing things better. And where does that come from? That comes from smart machine learning. It comes from smart systems, from smart applications, knowing and utilizing the data correctly. We all have lots of data. I mean, you could walk into any organization, and I'm sure Jacques could go ahead and mine the data in any organization, and the amount of things that would come out of that would be massive. There would be so much that we can learn from that. It's just about time, willingness, and whether that organization is ready from a maturity perspective to start engaging, because that's the other point. Customers talk about wanting to do something, but are they mature enough? And I don't mean that negatively. Are you ready? Are you at that point in your maturity as an organization to take something on? And sometimes this has to be it's a path. It's a road that you're going to have to walk for a couple of years. And where you get partners, true partners in organizations, is the ones that are willing to walk that path for not a year, not 2 years, 3 years, it's 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and have the ability and the foresight to try and assist their customer through this. And also partner with other partners. The strong points is getting partners to collaborate with partners to deliver that ultimate experience to what the customer is trying to deliver to their clients. We see a prolific move, explosion in the digital communication. There's a problem with that. And when I say talk about digital communication, I'm talking about the likes of bringing on all the other communications around it. It's not just about voice and email and SMS and everything else. It's all your social channels. It's Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and WeChat and WhatsApp, but all of these digital communications flying in. How do you deal with that? And if an organization is not equipped from a process perspective, from a skills perspective, and I'm talking about skills as an organization, skill as an agent and the like, you're going to fail. to take on these channels and to be able to do that correctly, we have seen serious failures in organizations where they've actually had to go back and restart and rethink. So the skills expansion is something that we're starting to see, where you're actually having to now really understand your users. Can they actually provide the skill? A voice agent typically is not maybe an agent that can write good text. Can they spell correctly? Is their language skill in written format correct? Do they have the tools at hand to enable them? And that's where I think a lot of this, the sort of complementary technologies to those are really going to be significant, are really going to help. Bringing in AI, understanding the data, bringing that all in together. Yes, natural language learning, all of that is there. Understanding sentiment, what is your customers saying about you? But it's more than that. It's more than just voice of the customer. It's more than just process automation. It's more than all these bits and pieces. How do we do this near real time? Bring this information in, make it available, enable the user, the organization near real time in a way that they can make informed decisions almost instantaneously. That's where we need to get to. That's where I think we are getting to, and a lot faster than what we have before. Where we are today is obviously taking a lot of that data and trying to mine it, and exactly to what Jacques was talking about. Understanding that data, and now how do we take that data and now mine it and understand it, and how do we bring it to the forefront? What we would like to see is that our suppliers, our technology vendors, are able to bring in the technology of what Jacques has as a forefront, but to bring that in real time, not post time, not 2 seconds later, but as a transaction is happening, they can see that real time. And I'm not saying that the technology is not out there. What I'm saying is your big technology vendors, the guys that are really playing and providing that tech in front of the users and the agents out there, that itself becomes real time. And that's where I think we're going to see the next sort of explosion in taking AI, obviously, to another level.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. Wow, you've unpacked quite a lot there. I just see, I see the nature of this call is like all over the place. It's going to be a challenge pulling this all together so we can get to some very nice, tangible outputs. But I'm sure the panelists are going to help me. I see there's some questions coming in on the Q&A. So please keep them coming in. We'll keep an eye on those, and then we'll address those either in our discussions or towards the end of the call. So please keep them coming. So let's open it up, guys. Let's get into some of the meat here. So the first thing that I sensed from overall is that AI, from what I'm hearing, AI is not a discrete technology. It sort of permeates across everything that one does at a technology level, whether it's a self-service bot, or whether it's a back-end process, or it is an assist function that is helping an agent perform better, whether it's driving increased revenues or reducing costs by improving efficiencies. It's a technology that is available to all, if one can put it that way, and that there's an opportunity for it to be embedded into the organization. So just off the back of the one question that came in here, is, and sort of touching on it, is when I'd spoken to some of you earlier on, that's the panelists, and we were preparing for this call, there was this sense that it is hype in one sense. There's a lot of hype around AI. And then there's the challenge that organizations have of actually implementing really valid, workable deployments of AI. I think that's on the one side. So when you look at a normal company out there, how do they approach it? Versus when you look at the vendors, and Carl, I know you're involved, and Adam, you're involved in in vendor-specific technologies, where the vendors are trying to embed AI in their offerings, because if anybody isn't doing it, then they're not on the right path. And you know, that's just what everybody has to be done. But I just want to put a question out there, and I'll just throw it out there, and whoever wants to respond, please do. But how do you, what needs to be done in order for us to fast track this so that AI becomes a lot more practical? Maybe it is practical. Maybe it is. We're just not seeing it. But if I just put it out there and see who comes back.
Yeah, Neville, I just want to quickly say, I latch onto what Adam and Paul was saying as well, and answering your question. I think clearly customers, companies are on different maturity paths. There's the Industrial Data Corporation has got this maturity scope framework that I've been using for a decade, especially when we implemented AI-driven solutions at companies. You need to assess where people are, and there's the 5 pillars, and we'll be talking about that soon. But where everything starts, obviously it's about the business value drivers to help these kind of businesses thrive. And on the customer side, customer experience side, it's like Carl said, real-time, on-demand, digital, personalized service delivery, assistance, and advice. That's kind of holy grail. And for me, that is absolutely achievable with the current technology and stack. Maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years, a bit more difficult. So I think there was clearly some justification for hype, and there's obviously still hype, but it's one thing that I think there's also expectations as well, because people see already what Google, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, all these companies are getting right. So the question is, can we democratize that to more companies to be as effective as those kind of companies in that personalized engagement? So I think there's a challenge in terms of doing that. So I also want to say, if you look at the AI, the smart technology toolbox, I like to talk about a smart technology toolbox because AI is just one of the technologies, and AI has got different aspects to it. There's even things like robotic process automation, which is just kind of smart rules and logic that you apply, maybe not pure AI, maybe more in the category of expert systems, which is, again, part of the AI toolbox as well. So there's lots of different technologies, and it's basically what companies need to do is to be really comfortable with that smart technology toolbox. And if they don't have the in-house knowledge, and if they want to move fast, they need to partner and collaborate with other companies or vendors or solution providers to help them accelerate. And that's what I've been doing with my previous companies. We've been helping companies to accelerate their AI-driven digital transformation journey. I think it is worthwhile just briefly mentioning, and I know there's quite a bit of frameworks out there like the IDC's framework, but it's still one that's worthwhile. And they talk about the 5 elements of successful AI transformation. And it really starts with the intent, the use case. So it always starts there. I remember when I worked with one of the big banks in South Africa, we've identified 15 different use cases, really strong business cases for AI and so forth. And then we said, okay, we're going to tackle, then we started to prioritize that. And then we said, okay, let's tackle the top one here. And in this particular instance, it was about personalized home loans, interest rates, personalized products with respect to home loans. And the reason why that was important, because a 1% change or 0.5% change in the market share of home loans is, we talk about billions of rands in South Africa, and would be billions of dollars elsewhere as well. So it's very important to look at the use cases, the sources of value, the intent. So that's the first thing that's very, very important. And then the 5 other ones is data. So your data ecosystems, your technology, techniques and tools, your processes, the workflow integration, all of those things. And then the people. The people is pretty important. You need to have an open culture and organization. So you need these kind of 5 elements to accelerate the path to value generation. And there needs to be organizational alignment. You've got to make sure you've got the skills, data science, AI skills, smart technology skills available. If they're not available, you need to outsource or insource You've got to make sure you've got your data technology stacks is right. So, and you won't get to the success if you don't do those kind of things. And what's nice about this, final comment on this, on the IDC's Big Data Analytics Maturity Scope framework, they actually look at a company according to 5 stages. There's the ad hoc stage, where things are maybe more siloed, proof of concept, or a pilot project, undefined processes. But then when you move to opportunistic, things are a little bit more defined, repeatable, managed, and then optimized. And optimized is where you get this continuous improvement, and things are well-defined, etc. But now you can look at all those 5 pillars. You can look at my intent strategy, my technology, people, data, and processes, and I can see exactly where I am from a maturity stage perspective: ad hoc, opportunistic, repeatable, managed, optimized. You might be very good with intent and strategy, but maybe your technology is not there, or your data is not there, or your people is not there, or your processes. So it's very important to look at all those kind of things and have a holistic approach to actually do digital transformation.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions, but I first want to hear, Carl, Adam, you got anything to add to this next round?
I agree 100%. I think what the most important part of what Jacques was saying is an organization needs to look and be truly honest as to where their maturity is and what they need to put in place in order to adopt. We all want to get to the end game. We all do. We all want to make it happen. But we always need to go back to the beginning to say, okay, where are we as an organization in our maturity across all elements? Let's understand that and then bring in the right elements to get to that point. And you can get there. Every organization can get there, 100%. Digital transformation is on everybody's box. Everybody wants to do it, as an example. But how do I get there? And you need to choose the right partners. And I put that as a plural because I don't believe you just have one organization that's going to get you there. I think there's a few partners that play at different places. You know, if from my perspective, you know, in what we do, we don't have somebody like a Jacques as their organization. So we would want to partner with a Jacques organization to take a solution to an organization. It's bringing the right partners together in order to deliver what that end goal is. And I think that's going to be very important for organizations at different maturity levels.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Paul. Adam?
Yeah, I'm actually going to ask Jacques a question.
Yes.
Throw a bit of a curve. Who in these organizations do you think is accountable for this strategy? Yeah, because I think there's some organization and that maybe that they lean and rely on the solutions that they acquire having these capabilities, and then others go and say, hey, we need to acquire, to the question from the on the forum, you know, we have to have these skills in-house. And I'd be interested to get your views on, you know, what's the right model and what's the right model for different organizations, right?
Adam, that's a fantastic question. And it's so interesting because just a quick case and example. So one of the biggest banks here in Africa, South Africa, they had significant AI expertise and people on board to do various things, but there's so many things to do. But they do have all these things, but they still weren't able to address these kind of really important problems. And so I would say in their particular instance, what they did was follow the hybrid approach. So and maybe it's not great from a business, well, from a AI company, AI solutions company perspective. I'm interested in scalable solutions. So obviously we want to help customers and enterprises, but we are also interested in building scalable businesses. So that's why we've transitioned more to AI-driven platform businesses where we can monetize data and we can partner, we can do various things, because that is what's possible right now. But if you look at enterprises, and what was interesting with this big bank, they were doing various things where they're getting value from AI and stuff, but they still needed external expertise to help accelerate some of the other important use cases. And they didn't have the internal experience with some of the people there because it's still a new field and people are more getting used to it. So they were tapping into the skill of this AI partner, in our case, in say Cortex, to help them with, say, dynamic price optimization. So we do this project, we implement, and then there's a decision point where they can say, are we going to license, are we going to work with this AI partner further, or have we extracted enough knowledge so that we can now take it further internally? And this is just a nice little use case of what I see. So in this particular instance, they were so happy with what's being produced and so forth. So there was knowledge transfer, we've delivered. So obviously we've implemented a successful project, everything was good, but they are taking it further. So I think that's what we will definitely see. But I think it also depends on what is the specific solution as well. Some of the solutions now, if you just work with AWS or Microsoft, Google, there's a lot of packaged kind of solutions where companies can just say, I can just work with these packaged solutions, and I need maybe a solutions partner to help configure, to calibrate, to use it in an optimal way. But then I create a solution, but I do have this dependence with both some of the big tech companies, obviously for cloud storage and stuff, but also for these packaged kind of solutions. So there's another little use case, and maybe it makes sense for a specific use case to do that. So I would say enterprise, a company should always try and go back to the business value drivers, look at the cost effectiveness of things. It's always better to try and where it makes sense, if it's something that's close to my core in terms of how I make money, and I would say try to build that capacity and expertise internally, but also realize that we live in the API economy where it's plug and play. So we have to get used to a hybrid model of where we can play around with these legal blocks. And the legal blocks is not just technology, it's on so many various levels. It's like Carl said as well, there's multiple partners that could come with a best of breed solution. And then it's about how do you take that partner solution and this expertise with the cloud expertise and put it together in a solution that actually delivers the business benefit. So I would say there's quite even from a business, from an architectural perspective, a solutions architectural perspective, there's things to work out to see what makes sense for this company to do. And where I've been fortunate, we've gained some skills because we've seen all these different use cases and different maturities and so forth. So it is almost like try to assess exactly where this business is, and also try and look at the specific application and use case that they're trying to tackle, and then look at what their capabilities are internally and what is the things that one can bring to the table as well to make this a whole, to actually implement something that's actually going to deliver that business benefit. So Adam, back to you. I would say it's really it's a lot of sense making around all of these kind of things and connecting the dots and then helping business to implement. So I don't think it's a single answer. It's probably just doing that kind of assessment, and then at the end it's really about what is that end solution? Is it implemented? Is it actually making a difference? And is it well integrated within the company? Because it doesn't help if you just implement a solution and you disrupt things so much that even the other people that's in the company, they don't know how to use the technology optimally. So when you implement a solution, you've got to look at what's the impact of that on the people, and how should they adapt their tasks and roles around the implementation of this technology as well. So I would say it's a multidimensional problem, and one needs to be careful in terms of how you implement it, because it could have benefits, but it could have negatives as well as a result of what you do. I hope that helps. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Jacques. So, Jacques, would you mind just checking some of the questions that are kind of popping up? I think there might be some that are directed at yourself. But I think I just want to pull it back because we seem to be talking a lot about AI, and I think what I'm aware of is that, you know, there are a whole range of technologies that are impacting us quite effectively, certainly on the communication side of things, multiple channels, new channels that are emerging, Carl, I think you mentioned those. Adam, you mentioned some of those that are certainly gaining momentum. Certainly around the self-serve robotics areas with virtual assistants. Those are gaining traction as well. But I want to, and so we can talk about those. I'm conscious we've got like 8 minutes left and it feels like we've only just got started. But anyway, I want to just address the skills thing because when you look at the opportunity in South Africa, skills is always one of the things that comes up. I can see your hand, Jacques. I'll be with you now.
No, I didn't. Sorry, go for it.
Then we'll just, okay.
He's
Right,
just
well,
waving. He's just waving.
No, that's fine. Thank you for that. Just some motivation there. All right. So when you look at skills, I mean, I think in my mind, I see skills at 3 levels. There's the user-based skills. So that's all of us that have got to become aware of this new world of digital and how we use the technology. And I think that's just easier than most people think. You know, when you look at the way we use our mobile phones, you use all of that. That's the first level. The second level is the orchestration level or the configuration level. And that is where people need to be trained up to actually manipulate and use the technology in a way that's going to make a difference. And from that perspective, organizations are going to have to look at skills in that space. And then the final one, maybe they're more, but the final one is the creative level, the creation level. That's where people get down, get dirty, get into the code, and are actually creating new technologies and making new stuff that actually works quite well. And I think in my mind, I always think that a lot of people underestimate the level of skill required at that top level, you know, at that creation level. It's underestimated. And I do know that there are a lot of initiatives ongoing in the country, especially the incubation initiatives down in the Western Cape, quite a few of them, the incubation initiatives up here in Gauteng, with Prof. Barry and what he's doing. So I know there's a lot of stuff going on at that level. And it's like you've got a pyramid where at the top of the pyramid, you've got these very, very creative, deep level skills. And if we don't have those and if we don't create those, then the opportunities won't flow further down. So as opposed to spending a lot of time creating these user-based skills, which are important, and we must continue to do that. I believe it's critical that we actually develop those top-end skills across the level, and that we filter that down so that these practical implementations of technology can start multiplying and going out there. And so when you talk about how do organizations implement these, it just sounds, Adam, your question to Joe, it just sounds like there has to be a top-down approach from executive level down to say, you know, here's the company's vision, strategy, intent, and we are going to do it on a platform, digital platform basis. It's a new business model. And I think once we get organizations thinking about it in that way, so that's what I'm picking up out of here and between the lines. So, you know, I don't know who to ask now. Maybe Adam, what is your view of skills, especially when you think of Australia? You know, is skill a problem in Australia?
I think it's interesting. I'm sort of reflecting a little bit on what Carl and Jacques mentioned, and I think in terms of how do you get a fast speed to competency, I think the key thing is it changes the buyer and seller relationship. So you're going from I'm going to buy this to I'm going to partner with a series of people, and I think there's impacts then on how do you commercially engage that? You know, you go from, hey, we work in an agile scrum internally within our organization. How do I take people from lots of different organizations to be part of that scrum team? I'm just sort of reflecting on some of the things, you know, in terms of what the guys mentioned. I think in terms of skills, I think, you know, I think the key thing is I think some of these skills have probably existed in organizations for a while, but they've never been really surfaced in the right way, you know. And I think it's about how do you get maybe business owners and sponsors that are more incentivized on the use case to be married up in the same car as the people that can actually have the technical skills and capabilities and the right partners in that same car at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the universities, no, Jacques, I was just asking, do you think the universities are producing the necessary skill for us to achieve this in South Africa?
Well, I think they're trying to adapt. I know Stellenbosch University is the data science school of computational thinking, data science, but I think I know Barry also well, and there's definitely initiatives, but it's slow. And it needs to be. Unfortunately, we live in a smart technology era where things are moving very quickly. And it was, even when I was at university, before I started my first AI company, it was still slow. They're struggling to adapt. So I think education will be disrupted. It needs to be disrupted in all sorts of different ways. In my book, Democratizing AI to Benefit Everyone, I've got whole sections on all the main industries. I also talk about personalized education and talk about universities and transformations that's happening there. Also, when you talked about skills, I just want to mention, I just published on LinkedIn, I've got a podcast as well as YouTube, where it's an extract from my book, where I specifically talk about AI's impact on employment and skills. I specifically mentioned, and then towards the latter part of the book, I also have talk about future skills. I think it's super important that we understand where things are going, so that we can make sure that even if we talk about the gig economy, that people are more equipped to actually take advantage of the opportunities that's going to be there. And I think it's very important for companies, for enterprises to be evolving around that space. You can't just have very fixed thinking and fixed roles. You've got to think more, be a lot more agile and adaptive in terms of skills and roles and so forth. But anyways, there's a lot to unpack. But yeah, in the book, I'm actually going through lots of AI use cases and talking about AI-driven digital transformation, what it means as well. So it's maybe worthwhile having a look.
I don't think
I have your book, Jacques, and I thought I'd read it over the weekend. But I think you can see I haven't got very far. If you look at that.
You can listen on the audio now. The audio is available as well. And I've got
exactly. No, but I have to say, so for any of those of you that are interested in the subject and in everything, you know, I must say I've just glanced through this book, and it's fundamental. And it's quite substantial, if I can put it that way, in terms of the areas that it covers. And so, yeah, so if you can get the book, I think it's, as they say, it's available from all good bookstores and Amazon, whatever. Yeah. But anyway, I think we're out of time, and that I can't believe that the time has gone so quickly. And I just wanted to do a quick wrap up if everyone's got maybe a minute, but I just want to thank the panelists for being on here. I know we touched on a few things. We certainly didn't get into the meat of it, and maybe this call might need to call for a follow-up. But certainly, I think we're in an exciting stage where technology is becoming more and more available. If you look at where the momentum is right now in the technology space, it's absolutely in platforms. It's in AI, it is in next generation software, rapid application development, and which means that organizations are going to have the opportunity to react more quicker, faster, and more strategically. But at the same time, as we discussed now, we realize that there are still many obstacles in the way. Organizational structures need to adapt, and organizations need to make those critical, hard decisions as to how they are going to feature and function into the future. Because if you don't, you will be disrupted. you definitely are at risk, no matter how big you are, because what all these new technologies are making available is for startups and entry-level organizations to get themselves organized much quicker at levels previously unheard of. So, and with AI at the center of that, I mean, just really becoming smart companies is the way to go. So I want to thank the panel. I want to thank all of those of you that have attended. The recording will be made available after on YouTube. And then in 6 weeks' time, we'll have a follow-up of this. I think the next one, I know the next one is going to be more forward-thinking and forward-looking. You know, what are the big trends that we need to be focusing on and we need to be thinking about. But so if there's any last comments, I'd just like to thank everyone. We will get your questions somehow or another. I will make sure that we answer the people that have asked these questions. So just look out for those either on the YouTube channel, or if I've got your name, then I will email you directly. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Neville.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adam, Cole. Very nice.
Thank you, guys.
As well.
Cheers, Ed.
Cheers. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was great. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.
See you, Neville.